I'm Kathy and welcome to House of Toefl's presentation on tips for mastering the TOEFL. Now, the purpose of today's lesson is not to give you specific strategies, but to give you general strategies and some tips on things that you need to do to master the TOEFL, to really get that high score in each section. So let's get started. We're going to start with some general tips, and I'm going to go through them one by one and add a few things that I think you should know. The first general tip is you must be prepared to study hard. Now, a lot of students think, they can study for a few weeks before the exam, or they can hire a tutor and just take 2 lessons and suddenly they're going to receive that 100 or that 110. I'm here to tell you that the TOEFL is a very long, very difficult test, and it does require you to study over a long period of time. So be prepared to study very hard. Second, no tutor can guarantee you a score. Now, I have seen some tutors online who say, if you study with me, I guarantee you'll get a 28 on the speaking, you'll get a 30 on the speaking, and so forth. Well, I'm here to tell you that is dishonest advertising. Remember, you are the one that has to take this test. They can guarantee you your money back, but no one can guarantee study with me and you will get X, Y, Z score. You are the one that has to take this test, so you are the one that has to get your score. No tutor can make that promise. Third, you should ideally immerse yourself in English. Now, what I mean by that is speak in English all the time, watch English movies, listen to English on the radio, speaking English in your home if possible. I know it's hard, but you need to be speaking English as much as you possibly can. This has been proven time and time again to be the most fast, the most effective way to learn a foreign language. So really immerse yourself and also try to think in English as well. Next, and I cannot stress this enough, vocabulary, vocabulary, vocabulary. You should learn as much vocabulary as you can. There's so many reasons you need to learn vocabulary, but just really quickly, first of all, I would say in the reading section, vocabulary questions are extremely common, but also when you speak, you need to show that you're flexible in your vocabulary, and same with when you write. You should not repeat yourself. That can lower your score. So the more vocabulary, the better, and make sure it's academic vocabulary. Next, you should be familiar with the test before you go into the TOEFL. So even if you think, I'm a really good English speaker, I spoke English for many years, I can do this test. Remember, this is not a test to see if you can communicate in English. A lot of this is test-taking skills and knowing how the TOEFL works. So please be familiar with the test before you actually go into the test to take it. All right, next. Be very cautious about the books you buy. Some are better than others. I do not want to name the books that I think are good right now and the books that I think are bad, but Google search for best books for the TOEFL and see what some of the bloggers out there are saying. And there are some books that have really poor sections, especially in the writing section. So be sure that you are getting actual content that reflects the test. You should have a native English speaker, ideally a TOEFL teacher. That would be your best bet, but at least a native speaker to evaluate your speaking and writing before you go into the test, especially if you need a high score. Now, the reason I say ideally a TOEFL teacher is we as TOEFL teachers are familiar with how the ETS scores your responses for both speaking and writing. So if you ask your friend might say, yeah, that's great, you're going to get a high score. A TOEFL teacher knows exactly what to look for, exactly what the criteria is for each speaking. So ideally, you should get a TOEFL teacher, a TOEFL tutor to listen to your speaking and to evaluate your writing. Okay, next point. Please be realistic in your expectations. For example, I had a student who wanted to go from getting a 50 to getting over 100 in 2 weeks. Is that realistic? In the real world, no, it isn't. It's going to take a lot more than 2 weeks to double your score. So please be realistic in how much time you need. I would say at a minimum, you should study for 3 months, but that is the bare minimum. You should ideally be studying for longer than that. Next, you cannot cram for the TOEFL because this isn't a math test where you memorize formulas and then you go in and apply the formulas. This is a holistic test of many of your different skills. So you can't just cram the week or the night before. This should be a long-term plan. And this ties into my last point. Give yourself time, at least a few months, to prepare before you take the test. Okay, next slide. Now, obviously, this is just a few tips for the reading. If you want to know more about the reading section, I have completed an ebook about the reading section, which you can get on my website, houseoftoefl.com. But this is just some basic strategies. First, read a wide variety of books in English. So especially academic books, but any books that you're interested in, read, and read, okay? Lots of reading. Next, familiarize yourself with TOEFL vocabulary. Please remember, the vocabulary in the TOEFL reading is not conversational vocabulary, it's academic vocabulary. And there are books that are specifically made for TOEFL vocabulary. So if you can purchase one of those books, great. There's also flashcards you can buy, and you can Google most common vocabulary words for the TOEFL if you don't have the money to spend on a book. But whatever you do, make sure you're studying TOEFL vocabulary. Next, familiarize yourself with the question types and have a strategy for each question type. All the question types are different and they all require a different strategy, which again, I do go through those in my book. So if you're interested, go to House of TOEFL and check out my ebook. Last, practice with actual TOEFL reading as much as possible. So again, there's free TOEFL reading passages online that you can try and see how you do before you go into the test. Next slide. Okay, some basic strategies for the reading section. Note-taking skills are so critical, so please practice taking notes before you go into the test. Listen to as many TOEFL lectures as possible before the exam. There's free ones online, or you can pick up a book that has TOEFL lectures and listen to them and practice answering the questions and see how you do before you go into the exam. Familiarize yourself with the question types. And again, you can pick up a book on how to complete the TOEFL listening sections, but be familiar with what to expect as far as the questions go. That helps you know what to write down. Tying into my next point, know what to listen for and what to write down. Things like tone, attitude, problems that you hear, solutions that are offered, questions that are asked to the teacher, and answers that are given, and so on. I do have a post on my blog about this, so check it out at houseoftoefl.com. And watch academic talks, such as TED Talks. If you don't know what TED Talks are, go to www.ted.com. There's so many fantastic talks. I'm sure you'll find many that you will be interested in because there's a wide range of topics and they're wonderful talks. Okay, now for the speaking section. First of all, understand the scoring criteria, which you can Google. Google TOEFL scoring criteria for the speaking and you will be able to see that, so that you know what they are looking for, because you have to know what they want. Okay, you might sound great when you speak, but it might not match their criteria. You need to match that criteria. Next, a lot of people don't think about this, but a lot of people need over 26. And one of the things to get 26 or over for the pharmacy and for nursing and teaching is to reduce that accent so you sound almost like a native speaker. So work on accent reduction, and you can do that with a tutor. And there's a lot of free resources online too that can help you with accent reduction. Familiarize yourself with all 6 question types and know what to expect for each question. Each question is unique. Each question is different. You need to know what to expect. Do not rely on templates. A lot of TOEFL tutors online that have free videos will say, use this template. And that was great a few years ago. But the TOEFL has changed in the last few years, and these templates no longer apply. Because guess what? The ETS realized that people were using templates. So they have made the questions a little bit trickier. So what I recommend is I have my useful phrases that I post, but I don't recommend for the speaking section you have a template in your mind. You might get into the test, it might not fit into your template, you might panic. So instead, I recommend useful phrases, okay? And you can contact me for more information. I'm here for you guys. Next, have a native speaker give you feedback on your grammar, your spoken grammar, especially your most frequent grammar mistakes, and really work on practicing and correcting them. Now, if you do need that 26 or over, I would recommend hiring a professional TOEFL tutor. And again, at House of TOEFL, that is something we offer. But the 26 and above is very challenging for a lot of people. So I do recommend that you work closely with someone. Whoever it is, make sure they're a professional and they know the test. A lot of people might say, oh, I can tutor you in TOEFL, but you need to make sure they have experience, okay? Because just because they've had a couple of TOEFL students before doesn't mean they know the test like we do at House of TOEFL. They really need to know the test to give you honest feedback, okay? So make sure that you've asked them about their experience. Speak in English all the time. Don't rely on your native language. I mean, use your email, switch your email to English, switch your cell phone settings to English. Just immerse yourself 100%. Practice speaking at a natural pace. So one way I find my students have found also is effective is watching a movie, pausing it, and then repeating what you just heard at the same speed so that you're not speaking too fast and you're not speaking too slow. Okay, lastly, for the independent writing section. Now, you'll notice I'm not going to get into the integrated because that is a little bit too complex, but I did want to talk about the independent writing section. Okay, for the integrated, you might need to go to House of TOEFL or another website and find out what's needed for that. It's a little complex for the purposes of this video. I'm just going to talk about the independent. First of all, always read the question carefully. Don't skim the question. A lot of people, they skim it. They don't exactly know what they're being asked to do. Please read it carefully and make sure you're answering it appropriately. Next, as always, be familiar with the scoring criteria. You can Google that, ETS scoring criteria for writing, and you will find it so that you know what they're looking for so you can write with that in mind, okay? Of course, have a native speaker read your essays and to check your grammar. On the writing, use a variety of language. Try not to repeat yourself, okay? They're looking for flexibility with that vocabulary. Develop your ideas with specific examples. Be specific. Name names. Talk about places. Give dates. They love when you're specific. Make sure you organize that essay into paragraphs, okay? Do not have one big block of text. And lastly, use a lot of transitions to show cohesion. You can Google transitions. Pepper them, that means put them all over throughout your essay so that it shows that cohesion, okay? All right, well, that is the video today for your overall tips for the TOEFL. I hope you found this video helpful. I'm Kathy with House of TOEFL, and as always, keep studying and good luck on your TOEFL. Have a great day.